All right, let's talk about .NET testing. We're going to go deep on the best practices. And look, this isn't just about getting a green check mark. It's about shifting your entire mindset to think and write tests like a senior developer. We're going to level you up from apprentice to master, right here, right now.
And right off the bat, this slide holds the key to absolutely everything. The single biggest leap you can make is realizing your tests are not for some build server. Nope, they are for you 6 months from now and for your teammates. You got to think of them as living, breathing documentation that clearly explains what your code is supposed to do.
Okay, so with that philosophy in our heads, what actually makes a test good? Let's break down the non-negotiable foundations for writing tests that are clean, reliable, and actually add value.
Pretty much every clean test you'll ever write should follow this one simple, super powerful structure. Arrange, act, assert. First, you arrange everything. Get all your objects and data set up just right. Then you act. You call the one single method you're testing. And finally, you assert that the result is exactly what you expected. It creates this clean, predictable rhythm that anyone on your team can understand in a second.
Now, let's talk about naming. It might seem small, but a good name does so much of the work for you. Test 1? That tells you absolutely nothing. But a name like withdraw underscore with insufficient funds underscore throws exception, wow, it tells you the method, the specific scenario, and exactly what should happen. It's basically a perfect summary of the whole test before you've even read a line of code. And this is a big one. Just like with your production code, your tests need to have a single, clear responsibility. Think about it. If a test fails, you want to know exactly why, instantly. If you cram a bunch of different checks into one test, a failure just tells you something in this area is broken. That's not helpful. So stick to the rule, one test, one specific behavior.
All right, so we've got the basic building blocks down. Now, let's get into the real mindset shift, the one thing that truly separates the juniors from the seniors when it comes to testing.
Here's the deal. You really shouldn't care how a method does its job. All that matters is that it does its job correctly. Testing that some internal private helper method got called, that's testing an implementation detail. The right way is to test the public, observable result. Did the final calculation come out right? Did the user get the correct error message? That's what you test.
And this, right here, is the golden rule that proves the point. Refactoring is all about changing the how without changing the what. So if you refactor your code, clean it up, make it more efficient, and your tests start breaking all over the place, that is a huge red flag. It means your tests are shackled to the implementation. Good tests should give you the confidence to refactor, not get in your way.
Okay, next up, we're going to tackle a topic that causes, so many arguments. Code coverage. It's time to bust some myths.
So first things first, let's just be super clear on what code coverage even is. It's just a percentage. It tells you how much of your code base was run when your tests executed. That's it. It tells you which lines were touched, but it tells you nothing about whether those lines were actually tested in a meaningful way. And this is the trap. So many teams fall right into it. The myth is, hey, if we hit 100% coverage, our code is perfect. No bugs. The reality? Not even close. You can have 100% coverage with tests that have zero useful assertions. High coverage is not a guarantee of high quality. So if chasing 100% is a trap, then what should we be doing? Well, a senior developer thinks like a risk manager. You focus your energy where the risk is highest. That means zeroing in on your critical business logic, your complex rules, and all those tricky edge cases. That's where good tests provide the most bang for your buck.
Okay, we've got the right mindset. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Here's your practical playbook for handling some of the messy, real-world challenges you're going to face. Think of this as your cheat sheet for where to spend your valuable time. You absolutely have to test your business logic, your validation, your most important user flows. But please don't waste time writing tests for simple property getters and setters or testing that the .NET framework itself works. Trust the framework. Test your code. Now, what about when your code talks to something external, like a database or a web API? Well, that's where mocks come in. The key is to mock only the external systems to keep your test isolated. If you start mocking everything, your tests become incredibly fragile. And be really careful with that verify method in mocking libraries. It can easily trick you into testing implementation details again.
All right, let's zoom out for a second. We've been talking about individual tests, but how do they all fit together in a healthy project? Well, the answer is the classic testing pyramid.
At the bottom, the foundation of everything, you have your unit tests.
This layer should be wide and solid. These are your bread and butter, they're super fast, totally isolated, and you should have a lot of them, covering all the small pieces of your system. They give you that instant feedback. Moving up a level, we have integration tests. Now these are a bit slower because they're checking how different pieces of your system play together. Like, does your service layer actually work with the real database? You'll have fewer of these, and you save them for those critical workflows. And right at the very top, the tiny peak of the pyramid, are your end-to-end tests. These are the slowest and the most fragile because they test the whole system, often right through the UI. Because they're so expensive to run and maintain, you want just a handful of these, covering only the absolute most critical user journeys.
All right, enough theory. Let's see how this plays out in a real-world scenario, like a technical interview. I'm going to throw a couple of common questions at you, and we'll walk through the perfect senior-level answer.
Okay, first one, you ready? What is the biggest testing mistake developers make? And the answer you give, testing implementation instead of behavior? It's the #1 cause of brittle, fragile test suites that are a nightmare to maintain.
All right, next up, and I guarantee you'll get asked this one. Is 100% code coverage a necessary goal? The answer is a very clear and confident no. The goal isn't to chase some arbitrary number. The goal is to have confidence that the most critical parts of your system work correctly. It's about the quality of that confidence, not the quantity of lines covered. And that really brings us to the final golden takeaway here. If you ever need to boil down your entire testing philosophy into one single sentence, this is it. This is your mic drop answer. It proves you get the why behind the what. Good tests give you confidence and let you move fast. Master that, and you're not just writing tests, you're thinking like a senior developer.